Those who have joined late, please put it in the chat box. Okay, so good morning all once again, and let us start today's lecture with uh, a quick glance of what we discussed in yesterday's lecture or before lecture. Right, we started off with the new chapter. I hope you can see. Oh, let me share the screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we started off with the new chapter in the third module, that is reading and writing files. So, as you all are aware with the files, how to operate with the files, you know how we read a file or how we create a file and how do we write into it. But again, with respect to Python, we are going to see here how to create a file, how to name them, how to find the path, and how to access or write content into a particular file or a document using here Python commands, right? So few basic things which you are already aware, what are files and file paths, right? How the files or documents, different types of documents, they are stored in a folders, right? Also known as directories. Then the hierarchy of a directory, how to access those directories. So how do they are represented in different windows, different platforms. Yeah, so on Windows, as you can see, it is the path of a particular directory is written using the backslashes, whereas in the OS 10 and the Linux, we used forward slash for the path. Right, so we saw example with respect to that. We saw how do we access the current working directory, right, using the command os dot get cwd, get current working directory. For that, you have to import the operating system module, that is import OS, right? And it will give you the current working directory you are present, right? And if you want to switch to a particular directory, then you can use the os.chdir, which stands for change directory command, and followed by the path that you want to change. Then it will automatically change to the that particular path, right? So then we saw the absolute as well as the relative path. The absolute path is the path which is with the root folder, right? It begins with the root folder, for example, C slash something. A relative path is the relative to the program's current working directory, right? So wherever you are working, you are creating a particular file in a folder. So that location of that particular file will be the relative path. And there are also the dot and double dot folders, as you can see here in the relative path. So double dot and single dot. Single dot denotes that it is a single period, that is a folder name is shorthand of this particular directory, the working directory that you are operating with. And two dots represent that it's the uh, parent, it is in the parent folder, right? The two periods means the parent folder. Just to give an example here, you can see uh, this double dot denotes it's a parent folder. Now C drive is a parent folder here, right? And all the intermediate folders are having the single period, that is single dot. Then we saw example of creating new folders with make directory command. We used the os.path module, right? The module which is used to contain many helpful functions related to file names as well as the file paths, right? So any operation that you have to do with respect to file paths or file names, you have to import this os.path module. So we saw different commands to handle the different types of paths, that is absolute and relative path. So os.path.apps path followed by the path name itself. Then os.path.isApps, that is absolute path or no, it will return true or false. Then os.path.rel path, which is relative path, right? So it takes two arguments, first being the location, that is the path itself, and second being the to check whether it's a start path or no. That is if start is provided or not provided. And here is we saw that how directory name is different from the base name. So the last slash, when you encounter a last slash, everything before that is the directory name, and after that is the base name, right? So we saw a few example of it, and finding file sizes and folder contents using get size and list directory command. Then we ultimately saw the validity of how do we check the validity of a particular path, right? Whether that path exists or no, whether that path is a file or a folder, or what is that. If it is a file, it will give you a true if that particular path is indicating to a particular file, right? If it is indicating to a particular folder or a document, then is dir is the command which is used to check whether it's a directory or a folder or not, and then it will return true if it is a folder or a directory, otherwise it will return false, right? So these are very basic commands which one should know. These are a single liner commands which which might come handy whenever you are dealing with the files as well as file paths. So in today's lecture, we'll be dealing up with further file processing, that is a reading and writing process. Right? How do we read a file? Suppose you already have an existing file, and you have to read a particular file from a particular location, right? In a drive, in any drive. It can be an internal drive or an external drive. And also, how do we write or put some content into that particular file? We are going to see that, but using commands, right? So this is not usually what we do, right? We usually, if you want to create a file, you simply right click or create a new folder and then name it, and inside that you create a document, you open that document, you write content to that, and so on, right? So that is the usual way what we follow. But how these things can be performed using the commands is the main focus here, right? So let's say we have to read a file, existing file, and also we have to write some content inside that, right? So for that we need to have at least four commands, four methods, in fact, which are helpful for creating, reading, writing, and also closing those files, right? So the three steps which are involved in doing this process is, first one, of course, being the opening that particular file, right? So we use the open function to return a file object. So when a file is created, when we open a file object of that particular file is returned to whichever variable that we are storing into, right? So we'll see an example of this also. Then second step is to read that file and write inside that file some content. And once we are done with reading as well as writing, we are ultimately going to close that file and return that file object, right? So opening files with the open function, for example, as I said, the open function will open a particular file and will return the file object. Now once that file object is returned, we have to store that file object into a variable, right? So we define a variable. Let's say I define a variable hello file, right? So I'm just going to create a file with the hello world content, right? So a simple content inside that, a simple text document. So for that, I'm going to use the open function, open method, and I'm going to give a location, which is nothing but a path, and it is automatically going to create this folder, right? This document hello.txt. Right now, only right now at this point, only the file is created and the file object is returned into the variable called hello file, right? That is the only intention of this one line command. Now this one thing, this is with respect to the Windows, that as I mentioned in the initial class, that backslash and forward slash, right? So backslash in Windows, when you define path, we use backslashes, and in the operating system 10, OS 10 and Linux, we use forward slashes. So these two instructions will do the same thing. They both are going to create a text document called hello.txt and just going to create a file, right? It is just going to open a file. It will be an empty file, but it is also going to return a file object, which will be useful for us to play with that file, and that file object is stored inside this variable called hello file, right? So that is very important because anything with respect to this file hello.txt, we are going to make use of that file object which is returned. Now, once we have opened this file, now let us go ahead and read the file and then add some content into it. Right. So let's say I have this hello file, hello content, and I'm going to give a command hello file dot read, right? And I'm going to give that variable name. Now this is a new variable which will store the content of that particular file, right? So please notice the change in the variable names here. Remember the variable names. Hello file will contain the file object of the file which is opened, and hello content will have the content of that opened file, right? So now the variable hello content contains the actual text or the content inside that file, which is, let's say, hello world, right? So once we have that, you can have any data into it, any for example, let's say you have this paragraph. Let's say we create a new file, sonnet.txt, right? And we are going to add this paragraph, a simple paragraph into it, a multiple line content. And once we have this content available in that particular text file, we are going to use commands to open that file and also read the content inside it. So let's say I create one more object, one more variable, sonnet file, which is going to store the file object inside it, right? File object of what? File object of the file sonnet29.txt, this file, right? So this is the text document, our original document, right? We are going to open that document, and after opening the file object, whichever the file object we have, which is returned by the open method, will be stored into this sonnet file, right? The variable sonnet file. Now we can make use of this variable sonnet file to do multiple processes or multiple operations with respect to the sonnet29.txt file, right? So let us use that variable sonnet file to read the content inside this. So when I say sonnet file dot read lines, it is simply going to read. It is simply going to give me the list uh, in which it will have the content, right? The content of the file. Now you can see here, it has returned the complete list here, and that list contains the actual content of the file, right? So it is the same content, but it is displayed in the form of a list, right? And as you can see that you can see some special characters also here, new line characters, right? So once we have the opening or reading a file, now let us see how can we go ahead and write a file, right? Or write a content inside a file. Uh, just a minute, I think there are a few more people adding. Right. So let's say we are going to open a file and as well as write some content inside that, right? So for that, let's say I have another file called bacon file, which is again read using the open method, right? And I'm going to use the file called bacon.txt for storing the content inside it. But when I'm writing a file, right? Now please notice here, it's a very important aspect again. When I'm writing something into a file, then I have to give one more additional argument to the open method, that is the rights or the authority of that particular text file, right? Whether I have to read that file, only read, or I have to write a file, write a content inside that file, or I have to amend something into that file. So these are the different permissions that I have to give. Now, when I let's suppose I have to write, now we are going to write the content inside the file bacon.txt. I'm going to give the permission as w, right? So w, as you can guess, it stands for write. So once I give this command, now this file object is stored in the variable called bacon file, and now I'm going to use that file object bacon file to write a content, right? So let's say I give the content write hello world, right? So what it is going to do it is simply going to write that content inside that and uh, give the length of it, right? It will give the length of the content that has been written. So it is simply returning me the file object, which is nothing but the length of the content here. Now I have opened the file. Uh, we have written down a small content inside that file. Now let us go and clear off the memory by closing that file using bacon file.close method, right? So closing the method is also important, because if you don't close a file, it will unnecessarily will be remain open and will be consuming the memory, right? So we'll close the file. Now, let's say in the same file, bacon.txt, I want to add some more content into it, right? So right now, only the hello world is present in the bacon.txt, but I want to now write some more content into it. So I don't have to create a file again, write the content fresh again, right? We can simply write the content again using the permission called amend, right? So for that, I have to give the command bacon file is equal to open followed by the file name, and second argument will be the permission, that is the or permission or a mode, right? Whether it is a write mode or it is a amend mode or a read mode, that mode we have to specify. So single letter A will denote that it is a amend mode, right? So amend, can anybody tell me what is the difference between writing and amending? We have already discussed these things maybe in the first module.
Amend is adding content to list.
Very good. So the basic difference between writing and amending is writing will replace or overwrite the existing content, but amend will simply add the content whatever you have given as the amend below or after the text which is existing, already existing, right? And it is not necessarily specific to list. It can be dictionaries also. It can be simple string also, right? So amend, the job of the amend is to just add the details, right? Amend means add the details, whereas the write will completely overwrite the content. So when you're writing it for the first time, it will be fresh writing, but when you write for the second time, the previous written content will be overwritten with the new content that you are writing. So, but in this case, we want to just add the details. We don't want to overwrite this hello world. Instead we want to just add another statement, that is bacon is not a vegetable, right? We want to amend this detail. So we give the permission mode, that is amend, and how to do that? Again, same thing, bacon file dot write followed by the statement that you want to amend. Now whatever is followed by this command will be amended into the main file and also return the length of it, right? As you can see, it is the length of the statement that we have given. Now, as I mentioned, you are supposed to close the file to save the memory. And now when you use the command bacon file open bacon.txt and content is equal to bacon file.read, right? Now, when we read this command and the bacon file dot read, so whatever the content we read using the bacon file, right, that content will be stored in the variable content, right? This is the additional variable that we have created. Now we have the content ready inside the variable content, right? So everything is ready. Let us go ahead and close the file and print the content, right? So when we print the content, as you can see, it completely prints the data which was having. So we just have two statements, so it will give you only two statements. That is the first one, when we created the file, we we wrote the statement hello world, and then we amended another statement, that is bacon is not a village, right? And as you can see, when we display the content, both the statements are visible. So these are very basic things which comes handy when you actually deal with the files or the content inside those files, right? So these may sound very simple, but if you miss out on these things, uh, you will not be able to properly operate or process the files, right? So having been discussed with this background, let us move little ahead and try to save the variables, right? Now, whatever variables that we save, for example, let me show you, whatever variables that we have created, for example, uh, here, sonnet file is a variable, and then uh, again, whatever the bacon file or content, these are all variables, right? Now, these variables are only be present till you have that session running, right? Or that shell, interactive shell running, right? When you close that shell, then this memory, these variables which are created, they will no more exist. They will be destroyed or deleted from the memory, and it will not be executed when you come back again with the interactive shell and execute this command, same commands. That time you might get an error that so and so variable doesn't exist, right? The reason is because these variables are there only for that temporary memory. It is there for only temporary time till you have that session running. Once you close that session, once you close that interactive session, interactive shell, those variables will no more exist. So whatever file object that we store in the bacon file here, or whatever the content that you are storing here in the variable content, right? They will no more exist when you close the shell. So let's say we want to save, we want to have that variable available when we come back next time, right? When we close the interactive shell, you exit it from the Python ideally, and when you come back again next time, you want to have those variables again, right? So for that also we have in the Python we have the facility to save those variables, right? So in order to save those variables, we have a dedicated module for that called shelf module, right? So shelf module will create a kind of a shelf to save those variables, right? And next time when you come back, those variables will be still there, right? Will not be vanished or will not be deleted from the temporary memory. All right. So shelf is the name of the module, so which you have to import before using any of the command which makes use of shelf. Right. So for example, we make use of shelf.open. Right. So we are going to create a variable called shelf file, and we are going to make use of this module shelf dot the method name open followed by another string that, let's say, my data, right? So inside that we are going to just simply put a new list with the name cats followed by some values, right? Some value to those list, right? These are some of the items, data items in that list: Zophie, Puka, and Simon. So these are the cats. Let's say we have these three cats, and now our job is to save those variables, right? So I'm going to give the command shelf file cats, which is the name of the list, is equal to cats. Now this is my list, my actual list, right? And then again I'm going to close that file, right? So what happens is now when I open that file, right, shelf file is equal to shelf dot open my data, and I'm going to simply type the file, the variable name. Okay, I'm going to simply type the variable name, that is type shelf file. Now, as you can see, even when I give that shelf file, which was created in the previous session, that variable, I still can see that it has stored the class by the name shelf.db file name shelf. Okay. So when I make use of any of the name or any of the command using this shell file, for example, if I give shell file cats, which is the cats is the name of the list here, right? So it will automatically display me the values or the items for that particular list. That means that that variable is saved and it is existing. If it is not say when we don't make use of this shelf command, and when you directly give this command, you might probably get an error that this particular file does not exist, or this particular variable in fact is no more existing, right? So that is the usage of how we can save the variables and use those variables whenever next time we come. Right. So, and this is another method this is another command just to in case if you want to have key of the dictionary, the list, and values of that particular list. For example, if you give just list shelf file dot keys, it will return you the name of the list, that is cats. And when you say list shelf file dot values, it will return you the actual values inside that list, that is the data items. So name of the catch here, right? And this is just a simple close command, right? So this is one way of saving the file. Now, how can we save with different functions that are available, right? So we have, if you can recall, we discussed a method called pprint, right? Pprint stands for pretty printing, right? This we discussed, I think, when we were discussing about dictionaries. So pprint is a module which comes again handy here for saving the variables. And in that pprint module, we have a method called pformat, right? So which basically gives the data in a much more formatted way. So pprint.pformat function will return the same text as the string, right? Notice here the difference is it will return us as a string instead of just printing it. So here, as you can see, we were just printing it. These were not the strings. But when we make use of pprint.p format, you can see here it is returning us in the form of a string. Right? This is a string. How? We'll see that. Now, first things first, we have to import the module, right? So here the main module is pprint, which stands for pretty printing. So we import the pprint, we create a list, cats is equal to so and so, and followed by that, inside of that we have a dictionary with a key, a name, right, and the followed by key value, Zophie, and then another key description followed by the value, which is chubby, which is just the description for a cat Zophie. Let's say Zophie is chubby and Puka is just fluffy. So this is a simple description of two cats, which is stored using dictionary inside a list. So it's a combination of dictionary as well as a list. Now, how can we print it as a string, right? So pprint.p format helps us to print that data in the form of a string, right? Instead of just printing it, right? As you can see here, this was just we were printing the output, right? But it was not in the form of a string. If we want that output in the form of a string, we can use this pprint.p format, which will give the same data here in the more formatted way, right? So as you can see, it is more formatted, which is actually in the form of alphabetical order, right? Now let's say if you want to add some more thing into it and display it. So we are going to just give a write command, the write mode, right? So file object, open mycats.py file, and then the permission, that is the mode in which we want to process. So it is a write mode. So we are going to put W here, and file object dot write. Inside that write, we are going to put a statement that is cats is equal to this particular string followed by next line. So what it will return? It will simply return as the value inside those lists, right? And this is simply returning the length of our string, right? So this is the length of our main list here. I think these things you already know how to get the data by using the argument, right? So my cats 0, it will give you the list item which is at the 0th index, right? And if you mention 0th item again with a specific key that is name, it will return you the value of that. Right? So with this, any doubt that you have so far that we have discussed? We can take up the doubts. If there are no doubts, shall proceed on. Anybody having any doubt? Okay, Vibha says no doubt. What about others? Yeah, guys, please respond. These are very basic things, very simple things. That's why I'm a little rushing. But there are a few more important aspects that we have to cover, right? And many interesting aspects also, right? So, if there are no doubts, let us go ahead and discuss a project, a small project, interesting project, which even you can do, right? So, this is a simple project of generating a random quiz, right? A random quiz. Now, we have to create multiple quizzes, right? Multiple files, every file having different quiz, different type of a quiz, and inside that quiz also will have multiple types of questions. Of course, multiple choice questions, right? With let's say four objectives, and this is a kind of a complete questionnaire that we are going to create, right? So let's say, for example, here we are going to create instead of 35, let's say we create some five quizzes. Okay, let's say this is just a kind of an assignment for you that you have to do in this weekend. You can try it out. This is very easy and very interesting as well. So I'm pretty sure that you will be able to create this project of generating a random quiz. So basic fundamental here is a random quiz set will be selected, and that inside that random quiz set also we have a random set of questions which will be shuffled and presented in front of the whoever the person who is taking the quiz, right? The user. So let's not take 35 quizzes. Instead, we'll take just say five quiz, right? And inside those five quizzes, you have to create 10 multiple choice questions, right? So basically, you have to hunt for some 50 questions, and you have to store those 50 questions, 10 each in one quiz, right? So I hope you understood. You got the point. You have to create five quizzes, right? And every quiz will have 10 questions, right? 10 multiple choice questions, let's say with four options, right? And that questions, those options should also be in random fashion, shuffled. Also, the questions should be in shuffled manner, right? So for that, we have to provide the correct answer and three random wrong answers for each of the question, and again in the random order. So for that, we have to write those five quizzes, right? Five text files and their respective five uh, answer files. So one file will have only the questions, and another corresponding file for that particular quiz will have the corresponding answer, right? So five text files with only questions and five text files with their respective answers, right? So how do we put up the coding? We are going to make use of this open function, the write function, the close function, as we have seen in the previous example. And another important aspect, that is we are going to make use of method called random shuffle, which is, as the name suggests, going to randomly shuffle the content inside it. Let it be questions or let it be your multiple choice options. It is going to simply shuffle randomly. Right. So I'll just give you the blueprint of how this can be done, and as the code is available, you can try it for your own example. Right. So let's say first thing we have to store the quiz data inside a dictionary. So let's say we create a data for some states and their capitals. Okay. So we have this state and capital for US data, but you can create it for India. You can create the states, the name of all the states and all the capitals associated with those states. In case if there are two capitals, there are few states which has two capitals, right? So in that case, you can use a bitwise operator, right? The pipe character, right? So that you can implement. You have to create a dictionary here, right, with the name capitals, and that dictionary should have the key value pairs. Now, what will be the key value? Key will be the name of the state, value will be the capital, right? So this data you have to create, right? And once we have this text document available, we save that file and then we create the quiz file to, and also the questions which are in the shuffled order. Now, how do we do that? We rest thing remains the same. We open the file using the command the permission mode and store the answer key into the new file. We write out the header for the quiz That is, let's say we give the name of the person who's taking the quiz, the date or the duration, the period of the quiz that that person has taken. Right? We write the state capitals quiz. This is just the title, right? And then we shuffle the orders of the data, right? Which is the states here, using the random dot shuffle states. Right. So this is again very simple. Now, once we have this shuffle data, we need to create the answers, which are the right answers, which are the wrong answers, right? So for that, we are going to create a variable called correct answer, which will have the data of all the questions, right? And also the associated answers with this. And we are going to put the wrong answers into a variable called wrong answers from the list values, right? Now, we are also going to delete those wrong values from the index, right, using the wrong answers dot index from the correct answers. So what basically what we are doing, we are insert this wrong answer variable. We are going to first store all the capital values, right? But we are going to only keep the correct answers, right? And we are going to exclude all the other. So we are going to delete the wrong answers. And once we have that, wrong answer will be shuffled, right? We will be having, out of 4 options, we will be having 1 right answer and 3 will be wrong answers. So those 3 will be randomly selected options using the set of wrong answers, right? So using the command random.sample, wrong answer 3. So wrong answer will contain all the wrong answers, right? Out of which 3 will be selected in the in random fashion and will be stored as the wrong answers, right? So what are our answer options now? Our answer options are 4 options, which are first or any one of them being 1 right and 3 wrong answers, right? So these will be the 3 wrong answers and 1 correct answer will be our answer options, right? Now, once we have these answers options, again we have to shuffle those answers options also. So we are going to use random dot shuffle answer options. So it's a simple method again. Now we have the data, right? We have the file name, which is the states as well as the capitals. We have the right answers, we have the wrong answers, we have the answer options. Now we have to create a form or kind of a format. Write the content to the quiz and write answer key files. So we are going to simply put a message, kind of a questions here, that what is the capital of percentage string. Now percentage string will replace to any random state from the list in the dictionary, from the list of the states that we have in our defined dictionary, right? So the question will be like, what is the capital of, it can be anything, right? It will be randomly selected. So once we have that, we are going to write the answer key to that file using this command, that is answer key dot write percentage s dot percentage s question number +1 and whatever that answer ABCD options, and then the correct answer, and then we quiz the file, right? And quiz the answer key also, right? So both the files are open. We have to close the files. So let me show you the output, and that will give you an idea how our quiz will look like, right? So first, the name of the person who's taking the quiz, the date, and the duration of the period of the quiz the person has taken. The title of the quiz, that is state capitals quiz. This is just one form, right? And inside that, we are going to have such questions like, what is the capital of this? Now this percentage string, which is replaced with the West Virginia, which is the name of the state here. Inside this, we have 4 options, out of which, of course, 1 is the right answer and remaining 3 are wrong answers. But the thing is here, these will be shuffled for every person who's taking the quiz, right? It will be randomly shuffled. So likewise, other questions will be created. Let's say, what is the capital of now Colorado, right? So that will be, let's say, the answer is Denver, right? So C will be the answer, but C will not be the answer for every time, right? So Denver might be the option next time in the place of A. So I hope you got the point. Not just the questions are shuffling, but we are also shuffling the answer options, right? The correct answer as well as the wrong answers here, right? So this is the simple assignment that you have to do. This is very easy program that you can do, right? So and side by side also practice for this multi clipboard which we have already seen, right? We have seen an example of a clipboard. How do we copy the content in the clipboard? But how can we make use of this multiple clipboard? Uh, Go through these codes once again, right? So that will give you an idea how to do it. And once you do this, you save the file, your Python file, which will be you have to submit later as your assignment, and also save the screenshot of your output, right? Or take a photo, take a screenshot, whatever. But save the output of these codes when you execute them, right? So that will be your second assignment itself. So I hope you understood the session, and you can once it is uploaded, you can go back to the wherever you have got stuck. You can get back to that particular thing once it is uploaded in the YouTube. Right. So pause the video wherever you feel like, go through it, understand it, and practice these programs and save these programs and also save the output of these programs. Right. So that will be your assignment. Right. So if you have any doubts, we'll take the doubts. Anybody with any doubt? Please feel free to ask any kind of doubt, let it be silly one. Because these are very basic, very simple things that you should understand, right? So whatever the advanced programs that we are going to see in the further modules, module 4 and module 5, without these basic fundamentals, you will not understand those, right? Anybody, any doubt? Yeah. Fixed faces answering, no doubt. I don't know about others. Okay, then if there are no doubts, then we shall conclude the lecture.